Okay, this one's going to be about my spaceship. But about that Barack Obama thing, it's nice to say things like stir up controversy and stuff. But I'll tell you a little story that I was remembering about that. He actually was in Congress or whatever the hell he's in, some Canadian. I don't know how your shit works. Um, and this is why I got Barack Obama elected. And this is before he was even running for president. He ended up getting in some fiery thing, and he ends up uttering this sentence: "It's not about white America. It's not about black America. It's the United States of America." And to me, that was some Snoop Dogg shit. And as soon as he said that fucking shit, is what led to me fucking pushing for him to get elected for fucking president. So that's the Barack Obama thing. This is going to be about my spaceship, but I just like to point out that, um, and my company, and how my company is actually run by a school that was like one of the first things that I was most famous for was actually how I spent my money. Because I spent it on the school and I spent it on buying intellectual property for my school so we'd have things to learn and we'd have companies and stuff like that that we could run and stuff. And this school actually ends up running my company nowadays. And it's a very charitable organization that, we help poor aliens and poor humans all over the place. But you'll notice that the afterlife's a lot more fair. Like the afterlife's a lot fairer, and they've been working on allowance. Like we're barbarians that have just started pooping and peeing in a toilet 100 years ago. So most of our ancestors are barbarians and stuff, and they work on allowance from space. They don't actually have money like I have money in space. So that's about my company. So my spaceship actually works like this. You know that crazy gigantic laser that those crazy scientists put over your eyeballs to like blast like a hole through the universe on your eyeballs? Or whatever, that crazy scientist, big giant laser, cone shaped thing facing you like eye of death sort of laser thing. So it's essentially taking that and pointing it against another one at an equal and opposite force, and then pointing and having like eight in a circle, all pointing at each other in equal and opposite force, and then building an apparatus around these lasers, which will be your spaceship. And the idea is that we're going to create this force till it is equal and opposite force that has literally exploded, like right here. Like if we let go of this force, this thing is going to go off. It's going to blow us all to pieces, basically. But we're going to control this force equal and oppositely in all directions. And then when we want to move in a direction, we're going to, reduce repelling, reduce the repulsion a bit. Like how you're controlling the force by equal and opposite force, you're going to reduce a force, so you now go in that direction or the opposite direction, whatever direction you go in. When you reduce a force, it's going to send you in one direction, and then when you reduce the other force, it's going to send you in the other direction, and you're going to have all these lasers in a circle so you can go in all the directions, right? So that's how this super laser came about. Good thing, it's really good to experiment with magnets, because the afterlife is really good with some magnetic technology and stuff like that. But like I don't know what else I was going to say, but that's essentially how my spaceship came about and how it works. And like, because I use electricity, right? Because my generator runs off electricity, lightning in a bottle. My previous generator runs on electricity. There's also a perpetual generator that I have. I noticed if you take an electric motor and get it to run the stator, the generator part, the stator and the rotor, get it to run the rotor and inside the stator, you get an electric motor to spin it, and you loop the generator back into the electric motor. It's going to run for a little bit. There's a couple things you can do here. If this thing runs for a little bit, that's free energy. I've already seen this on YouTube working. Free energy and an electric motor being looped into a generator and looped back into the electric motor. I've seen that running in Power Light, and it runs for a little bit, right? What you can do is you can create a grid and grid of these and utilize that free energy on a grid basis. You know what I mean? You could just like create a grid and like, okay, when this one's running, we'll utilize that one and we'll get it to trigger this other one and start the other one. because that's the thing, you have to trigger it with a battery. You have to trigger it with a battery, but after it runs for a little bit, it's giving you free energy for a little bit after you trigger it with a battery. So you get it to trigger the other ones, and you create like a grid of them triggering themselves, and triggering it with the battery whenever you need to, and you create a lot of free energy this way. But the other thing is the 60 hertz inverter on the end of the power supply, because that's what an electric motor runs off, is the quality of electricity. The reason that this generator loses electricity is because the quality of electricity dissipates from 60 hertz. You don't get the same amount of torque, and you start getting 59 hertz, and you don't get the same amount of torque, and you start getting 58 hertz, and it starts losing power due to friction, and you're not looping enough, and the power that you're creating is being the resulting power is being affected by that. But if you convert that resulting power back into 60 hertz, invert it back into 60 hertz electricity, and then send it into the electric motor, technically this perpetual generator should keep on running. You know what I mean? It shouldn't die out to friction like the other ones die out to friction. And plus, you could grid them even if it did die out to friction. So that's the other generator that I have. So what they're doing in space is like literally understanding, like, does my generator work better in hot? Does it work better in cold? Does it work better in gas? Does it work better in an ionized atmosphere? Does it work better in water? Does it work better in some gel? Does it work better with some gel? You know what I mean? How do you suck electricity out of the dimension that we're sucking it out of, basically? How do you create an environment that sucks electricity out of, similar to like a magnet? It's similar to how a magnet does it into copper. How do you create a different one, or an alternate one, to actually understand the process a little better, and the magnetical, the balance, the attraction, repulsion of attracting electricity into this dimension, into a copper coil, before it releases itself back into its dimension that it came from, or whatever it is, right? So how do you finite that process? And they're literally zapping electricity out of the air, like zapping tons of electricity out of the air nowadays in dimension. And what makes the dimension or electricity so interesting, and my spaceship so interesting, is with the slipstream spaceship, you need to be in this universe. You know what I mean? You need to be in this universe. There has to be a slipstream in the universe, and you have to use it. With my spaceship, because we're creating a force, and we're using things like electricity, which we can create anywhere. You can create it. You can take electricity, like you can take my generator into space and try to start pulling electricity out of the air, try and start pulling electricity out of the air into copper wire. That's what you're doing. You're pulling electricity out of the air in copper wire in space where there's no particles, and I bet you it still works. You know what I mean? I bet you there's still electricity there even though there's no particles there, supposedly. So anyway, so what you can do with mine is, you don't need to be in this universe. Mine's a propulsion system that you can take with you, and the power source, you can take a piece of this universe and travel anywhere. You know what I mean? You can take how this universe is fundamentally built, and into a block, put it into your engine, and have enough power based on electricity, and then the propulsion of forces against one another as your vehicle. So that's the interesting thing about my spaceship, is that it actually works outside this universe. And this is like a car in a multi-universal heaven, like an existential universal heaven, which might not be the first heaven that you go to. You might have to work your way up to the multi-existential heavens, right? So, but you could literally drive in this existential universe, you could drive in that existential universe, drive in the real world per se. Because that's the other thing. This is like a school world. This isn't like a real world. This is like a built world, and we're pretending to be human beings, and this is sort of like a school world. So, but my spaceship works outside of this world, and that's what I mean. Like, I got like real money coming in that nobody else has coming in. Not just from magical things. I have it coming in from magical things, but from real things, like inventing a spaceship and stuff too. And that's the thing, like the slipstream spaceship doesn't travel everywhere. Like my spaceship's like a pod, so you can go to the places that the slipstream isn't going to. You can quickly go like almost the speed of light over there or whatever. Oh, my time's up.